So for question number one, psychology is a fairly new field. So it's been around for about 100 years, and then the field of industrial organizational psychology has really been established for even shorter, just within the 20th century. With this being said, the research surrounding organizational or industrial organizational psychology kind of follows the trends of what organizations are dealing with in that moment. So for example, when the 9/11 attacks occurred, the research focused on emergency preparedness. So how can organizations be prepared for emergencies like so to occur? So this wasn't really a focus before. It was a concern, but not really a focus. So this is just being said to show just how the trends kind of follow, or research trends follow what's going on in organizations at the time. So one recent event that has occurred and has resulted in a specific outcome within industrial organizational psychology is the COVID-19 pandemic. So this has led to many organizations having to switch to remote or online work. So this has certainly created a need for research in the field. Jex and Britt point out in the book that this field has been a focus of research for the last 5 years. However, not a lot of organizations have been utilizing online or remote work resources. And with this pandemic, it kind of became a need. And this has created this new field of research for how this affects job satisfaction, employee engagement. How are employees interacting with customers through online means? Is this creating more stress? Is this creating less stress? Or organizations becoming more lenient with childcare? And this has really created a need of research within the field of industrial organizational psychology. So how does communications technology affect the workplace, work attitudes, motivation, and just how does it change our overall outlook about our jobs? So the American Psychological Association actually commented recently on how crucial industrial organizational psychologists are going to be for recovering from this pandemic. And they sort of listed this pandemic as a society-wide experiment. So how communication technology is going to affect the workplace. Questions 2 ask about the socialization process for graduate students, and then do we think liberty is successful? So organizational socialization is a process by which an outsider becomes an organizational member. So this is where graduate students or potential graduate students kind of start to feel like they are a part of the organization. And this actually begins even before the recruitment stage. So this begins during the anticipatory socialization process. So this is where you're really gathering information about your organization. So in this case, this would be potential students seeing what the values are at Liberty University. What are their goals? Do this align with mine? Do I even want to be a part of the school? And that actually is a really important part of the socialization process. The next stage, according to Jex and Bricks, is the encounter stage. So this is where a potential student is going to become an official student. So during this stage is when I actually got a free t-shirt. So I became an official student. You're starting to get a little bit more accustomed to Liberty as an organization. So the next stage is change and acquisition. So during this stage, it's usually the most difficult just because you're changing and you're adapting your values to the organizations. So you're changing, you're coming more comfortable with what the degree requires of you, how you're submitting assignments. This stage is also actually the hardest part of the socialization stage for me personally because of having to incorporate biblical scripture into my assignments. So I haven't ever really done this before. I'm accustomed to the Bible, but I haven't actually included it in my assignments. So this was a really hard part of the socialization process for me. But after this stage, you're really pretty much considered socialized. And then I do believe that Liberty does a great job at this. They do a really good job at sending emails, making you feel like an online student. You are still part of the home campus. They also, I wish that they did do more to get us with face-to-face contact, so whether it be through Zoom meetings or things of that nature. I think this would really help with the socialization process. Just being able to see physically our professors, maybe in a way like this by doing video recordings or something of that nature. But I do believe Liberty does a great job at the socialization process. The third question is asking how an organization can reduce or prevent work-family conflict. So although we're working about 80% of our lives, that other 20%, if not more, is going to other obligations, whether this be work or family, friends, children, your parents, taking care of them. We have a lot of other things on our plate. And then also most of the time when people are entering their careers is around the same age that they're starting families, having kids. So this kind of creates that work-family conflict. So one way that organizations can prevent work-family conflict is through family-friendly policies. So most of the time these organizations will be labeled family-friendly. So this just means they offer policies for preventing any retaliation for childcare, doctor's visits. Maybe they even provide childcare for you. They provide gyms for you. These are things that organizations can do to prevent that work-family conflict. This isn't always attainable. Not all organizations offer this. So another thing that organizations can do to prevent work-family conflict is just changing their attitudes and culture towards family responsibilities. Change the culture to make it positive. Don't make people feel like there's going to be any retaliation for using their extra maternity leave that they're provided. It's shown that most time women aren't going to take that extra maternity leave if they feel that the culture surrounding it is negative. So just have an open door policy. Have supervisors let their employees come into their office with any issues and communicate openly with what problems they're facing. So this is a way that organizations can prevent or reduce work-family conflict. So question number 4 is asking us to imagine we're developing a performance assessment program for employee development. So by using Murphy's List, for a possible performance assessment program, I would first start by separating performance dimensions into in-role and extra role. So in-role are just those technical abilities of the job. Extra role are just the non-technical abilities, like being able to communicate effectively. So the reason I would create this distinction would just be because I'd want to focus the performance assessment on the values of the organization. So if an organization is focused more on in-role abilities, I'm going to want to develop my performance assessment to assess these types of abilities. So for example, a doctor's office would be more focused on probably in-role abilities more than extra role. Even though extra role are still going to be important, they're going to want to make sure that their doctors can correctly assess a patient. So drawing blood, being able to take heart rate and blood pressure measures, these are going to be more performance assessments focused on in-role. So if I was creating a performance assessment for, say, a retail company, they would probably be more focused on extra role abilities. So being able to communicate effectively. I'd want to develop a performance assessment that's going to evaluate how well they communicate. Do they make interpersonal relationships with customers? Because that's what's going to make that organization their sales. The next dimension I would focus on would be downtime behaviors. So this includes counterproductive behaviors like drug and alcohol use, how much they're talking to friends, what they're doing in their free time, and things of that nature. And this kind of leads into the next dimension that I would include, which would be destructive or hazardous behaviors, which is like safety violations, sabotage, and accidents. So both enroll and extra-role behaviors are important in organizations. However, you kind of want to taper your performance assessment to your organization. Not all organizations are going to value each of these dimensions equally. So like I said, retail companies, they are concerned with safety, but that's not as apparent or practical as a construction zone being worried about a performance assessment, including hazardous and destructive behaviors. So you're really going to want to taper that to what the organization values. The last and final question is asking what are some common organizational constraints and how they lead to counterproductive behaviors. So counterproductive behaviors are violational acts that harm or are intended to harm an organization or an organization's members. So there typically are specific causes for counterproductive behaviors. The most common organizational constraints that cause counterproductive behaviors can be split into categories. So person-based or situational based. So is a person causing this counterproductive behavior, or is it the situation that's going on that's causing these counterproductive behaviors to occur? Person-based and situational-based counterproductive behaviors are not mutually exclusive, but person-based are basically just bad apples. They don't want to succeed in jobs, they don't mind harming others and harming others around them. And then situation-based causes of counterproductive behaviors focuses on the opportunity, the norms, and then the reactions to the emotions being felt by employees. On the basis of stealing, is the opportunity even available? Is the situation letting them steal? Or is it letting counterproductive behaviors occur? These are just a couple causes of counterproductive behaviors in organizations, but organization constraints can lead to counterproductive behaviors themselves. So one constraint could be absence control policies. So if there's no policies surrounding absent behavior, so there's no punishment, there's no any retaliation for it, people are going to be more likely to engage in that counterproductive behavior. So it's an organization's job to put in place these policies so these counterproductive behaviors don't occur. Another one could be an abusive supervisor. This could be physical, mental, emotional, which can lead to many negative reactions, which could lead to counterproductive behaviors. This could lead to revenge. This could lead to displaced aggression, like yelling, irritability, or acting unprofessional by using profanity, which are all counterproductive behaviors. It could also lead to theft as a retaliation tactic of the person being affected. Another one could be a unfair environment or a frustrating environment. And then one constraint I came up with was favoritism in the workplace. This could possibly lead towards negative feeling towards others and the feeling of not wanting to give your all, which is a counterproductive behavior in itself. This could lead to skipping more work, contributing less energy, and maybe even becoming aggressive with fellow employees.